Huh?
We're born in South.
Were you born between 1955 and 1980?
If so, you are part of a generation that stands at a unique spiritual and emotional crossroads. You were raised in a world that promised certainty, stability, and structure, yet you've watched it all shift beneath your feet.
The rules changed, the pace quickened, and somewhere along the way, you may have asked yourself, where do I fit in now?
This message, this video, is for you. Because whether you realize it or not, your soul chose not just for your own healing, but to anchor something much deeper in the world around you. Think about it. You grew up before smartphones, before 24/7 news cycles, before the internet redefined identity and connection.
You remember silence. You remember real conversations. You remember the sacredness of slowness.
And now, in a world that is louder, faster, and often more superficial, you might feel out of place, even invisible.
But what if that feeling isn't a flaw? What if it's a sign?
What if this stage of life, right now in your 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, isn't about decline but emergence? This isn't just another nostalgia trip. It's a spiritual recalibration. We're going to explore why your generation carries a hidden wisdom the world is desperate for. Why the insomnia, the anxiety, the quiet ache in your chest might actually be signals from your soul, and how you can finally start to feel at peace, not by trying to keep up, but by remembering who you really are. Stay with me through this video. We'll dive into lost values that still live in your heart, rediscover your deeper purpose beyond roles and routines, and unlock the quiet power that aging has tried to hide, but never erase. Because if you were born between 1955 and 1980, your timing was no accident. You were trained for a world where loyalty was rewarded, where effort led to stability, and where identity was tied to tangible things, a career, a home, a family. But as the years passed, that map no longer matched the terrain. The values you were raised with, patience, perseverance, showing up every day, are now often seen as outdated. Today's world runs on speed, visibility, and reinvention, and it's disorienting, isn't it? Watching systems unravel that you were once told to trust, seeing how what once felt secure now feels strangely brittle. You may have spent decades climbing ladders that disappeared halfway up, or poured yourself into relationships that quietly shifted as everyone tried to keep pace with modern life. There's a grief in that, a silent kind of mourning we rarely name. But it lingers, especially in the quiet moments. The truth is, the external world shifted faster than the internal world could process. Your soul was rooted in a time that believed in rhythm, not rush, in depth, not just display. And now, amidst all the noise, there's a yearning. Not to go backward, but to return inward. And that's where your power lives, because while younger generations adapt quickly to change, they also crave the wisdom of someone who remembers what came before, someone who hasn't forgotten how to listen without distraction, someone who knows that presence is more powerful than performance. You may feel invisible at times, but invisibility can be sacred. It means you're no longer caught in the performance trap. It means you can see clearly what others might miss. You've become a quiet witness in a world that forgot how to pause. And here's the paradox. The world no longer looks like the one you were trained for, but it needs your heart more than ever. If this resonates with you, let me know in the comments below. Your story matters more than you think. Born between 1955 and 1980, you weren't just part of a generation. You were a bridge. You straddled two vastly different worlds, one rooted in tradition, the other surging into technology. You remember rotary phones and smartphones, handwritten letters and instant messages, vinyl records and streaming playlists. You grew up analog, yet were forced to become digital, and in that shift, you developed something rare: adaptability and depth. You weren't born into the information age, you walked into it step by step, learning as you went. That journey gave you something artificial intelligence and algorithms can't replicate: perspective. But being a bridge isn't easy. It often means feeling torn between the past and the present, between what was known and what is now uncertain. It means carrying stories that newer generations may not understand, and sometimes not even wanting to tell them, because it's hard to explain a world that no longer exists. Yet in your silence, a sacred role is forming, because bridges connect. They stabilize, they bear weight, they allow others to cross safely from one side to the other, and perhaps that's what your soul came here to do, not to compete with the noise, but to offer grounding in the chaos. Maybe your wisdom isn't about keeping up, but about slowing down, not proving, but preserving, not shouting louder, but listening deeper. Buddhism teaches that true wisdom often comes not from grasping, but from letting go. And as someone who's witnessed the rise and fall of so many trends, technologies, and ideologies, you've learned, perhaps without realizing it, what truly lasts. That's the insight the world needs now. The ability to discern the eternal from the fleeting. So even if you sometimes feel irrelevant, remember, bridges are quiet but vital. They don't move, but they make movement possible. If this idea speaks to your journey, give this video a like so it reaches others who need it. There's a unique kind of unrest that begins to whisper in midlife, a quiet crisis that doesn't always look dramatic on the outside, but deeply unsettles the inside. You might find yourself waking in the early hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering, is this it? You've lived enough life to accumulate accomplishments, responsibilities, and a certain image others rely on. But beneath that, behind the roles of parent, partner, worker, caregiver, there's a quieter voice asking to be heard, a longing not for more, but for meaning. This stage, often between your 40s and 60s, is where many people feel most invisible. You're no longer the energetic up-and-comer, and not yet the wise elder society turns to. You exist in between, still growing, still searching but rarely acknowledged. Psychologists call this the liminal phase and a threshold space. Not who you were, not yet who you're becoming. And it can feel lonely, disorienting, even a little shameful if you don't have clear answers anymore. But what if this in-between space isn't a problem, but a portal? In spiritual traditions, the middle path is often the most sacred. It's where transformation occurs, not through force but through surrender, where the ego begins to loosen its grip and the soul starts to lead. You might feel tired, yes, but that tiredness carries wisdom. You've seen enough to know that the external chase never truly satisfies. And now, your soul is inviting you inward toward a deeper kind of fulfillment. This isn't about reinvention, it's about remembrance of who you are beneath the labels, of what you've always known but were too busy to feel. And if you're feeling restless, lost, or unfulfilled, it's not failure. It's a sacred signpost. Your spirit is ready to evolve. Let's name something few people talk about openly, the pain of feeling irrelevant in a world obsessed with newness. It's not just about being unfamiliar with the latest app or trend, it's the deeper ache of not being seen. Maybe you've noticed it when younger colleagues are promoted faster, when your opinion is bypassed, or when your experience seems to be quietly dismissed as outdated. Maybe it happens at family gatherings, when the conversation turns to things that don't interest you, or worse, that you no longer understand. And so you nod, smile, pretend. But inside, something tightens. This invisibility doesn't scream. It whispers. It says you don't belong here anymore. And those whispers, left unspoken, can shape your self-worth in quiet, corrosive ways. Buddhist thought reminds us that suffering often arises not from what happens to us, but from the meaning we assign to it. Feeling left behind is painful, but it doesn't mean you're no longer valuable. It means the world around you has shifted its lens. But your light, that never dims. This is the moment where you must reclaim authorship over your story, because your relevance isn't dictated by society's trends, it's anchored in the truth of your lived experience. Your years have given you layers, insight, nuance, and in a time of shortcuts and surface, that depth is radical. Consider this: trees don't compete with each other for the sky. They grow at their own pace, deepen their roots, and offer shade and beauty that only maturity can bring. You too are a tree, not flashy, but foundational. So if the world moves faster than your soul can follow, maybe that's not your failing. Maybe that's your calling, to slow the pace, to hold the wisdom, to remind others of what they've forgotten. If any part of this stirs something in you, share a comment below. Your truth might be the mirror someone else is quietly searching. For what if the restlessness you've been feeling isn't a sign that something's wrong, but that something's awakening? Midlife and beyond often bring what seems like confusion or dissatisfaction. You may feel pulled to change jobs, alter routines, or seek something new, yet you can't quite name what you're looking for. This isn't a crisis. It's a calling. You. See, when your external world becomes so familiar that it no longer challenges you, your soul starts to whisper louder. It says, "You've mastered survival. Now it's time for something deeper. Alignment. Alignment with what, though? With your true self, the one beyond expectations, beyond status, beyond the person you were told to become." The spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle describes this stage as the dissolution of form. What used to define you, your title, your roles, even your routines, begins to lose its grip. And in that space of letting go, something eternal begins to surface. Think of the caterpillar. It doesn't become a butterfly by adding wings. It dissolves into a seemingly chaotic mess inside the cocoon, only to emerge completely transformed. That's what this restlessness might be, the sacred mess before your soul takes flight. This is the season of the soul's reprioritization, where meaning overtakes metrics, where presence outweighs productivity, where what do I want becomes more important than what do I have. You may feel lost, but you're not alone. So many are quietly walking this same inner path, questioning, unlearning, remembering. And the more you honor this process, the more magnetic your peace becomes. Others will feel it in you, that stillness, that clarity, and wonder how you found it. And perhaps, without even trying, you'll become a guide for those still chasing what you've already outgrown. If this reflection feels familiar, give the video a like. Your resonance helps bring this message to others quietly seeking the same shift. From an early age, you were taught to trade wonder for responsibility, curiosity for certainty, dreams for duties. And while those lessons shaped you into a capable, reliable person, they may have also buried something sacred, your inner voice. Do you remember the version of yourself that imagined freely? The one that questioned things others accepted? The one that felt awe simply staring at the stars? That version never truly left. It was just quieted by years of shoulds and have-tos. But now, in the stillness of midlife, it's starting to rise again, not as a childish fantasy, but as an invitation to reclaim your soul's language. Spiritual wisdom often speaks of the inner child, not as something immature, but as the source of vitality, creativity, and connection to the divine. That part of you holds the original blueprint before the world told you who to be. And here's the twist. The further you get from youth, the closer you must come to that child within. Not to live in the past, but to retrieve the parts of you that were never meant to be abandoned. What did you love to do before anyone paid you for it? What made you lose track of time? What truths did you sense, even when adults dismissed them? These aren't just nostalgic questions, they are clues, because the second half of life isn't about accumulating, it's about uncovering. It's about remembering who you were before you were trained to forget. So if you're yearning for something, but can't quite name it, look backward, inward, gently. The answers may not be new, they may be ancient, just waiting for your permission to be felt again. Drop a comment if you've been reconnecting with a long-lost part of yourself. Your rediscovery could inspire someone else to remember too. In a world that worships speed, slowing down can feel almost rebellious. But for those born between 1955 and 1980, this slowing isn't just a choice, it's a spiritual necessity. You may have noticed that you no longer tolerate noise the way you once did. That crowded rooms, loud conversations, and relentless multitasking leave you drained rather than energized. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Your nervous system is craving stillness because your soul is ready to listen more deeply. Buddhist teachings often emphasize mindfulness, the art of being fully present with whatever is, without rushing to change it. And midlife is the perfect terrain for that practice, because when your body starts to move slower, Your attention can finally move deeper. Maybe you've started noticing the way sunlight filters through the trees in the morning, or how your breath changes when you're near someone you love, or how peaceful it feels to simply not do anything for a while. These moments are medicine. They're not empty. They're full of insight, connection, and presence. In slowing down, you give yourself access to a different kind of knowing, the intuitive, timeless kind that doesn't need proof to feel true. The world tells you to hurry, but your soul is asking, why? At this stage of life, your value isn't measured by how much you can produce or how quickly you can pivot. It's measured by how much meaning you can feel, hold, and offer. In slowness, grief has room to be honored. Joy has space to land. Forgiveness can breathe. So if others don't, understand why you're no longer rushing. Let them run. You have nothing left to prove, only more to feel. And in that stillness, something sacred begins to return. The presence that you once gave to everyone else, now returning home to you. If you've been leaning into slowness lately, even when it feels strange, let me know in the comments. You're not alone in this shift. There's a quiet shift that happens somewhere after 50. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare, but with feeling, a soft tug at the soul. You begin to realize that your life is no longer about building up, but about deepening in. This is the path of the elder, not in age alone, but in presence, perspective, and spiritual weight. We often confuse aging with fading. But in ancient cultures, from Native American tribes to Buddhist monasteries, the elders were the keepers of stories, the anchors of peace, the steady voices in times of chaos. They weren't sidelined, they were sought after. And that role, it's calling you now. Becoming an elder doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you've lived the questions long enough to recognize the patterns. You know what matters. You know how to sit in discomfort without trying to fix it. You've grieved enough to recognize grief in others, and you can hold that space without judgment. In a spiritual sense, you're becoming a lighthouse. You don't chase ships anymore. You simply shine, and those who need you will find you, often without words. They'll sense your steadiness, your depth. This healing, this breaking of generational silence, doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be as simple as telling the truth about how you feel, as gentle as allowing yourself to cry without explanation, as brave as saying, "I don't know," when everyone expects you to be certain. In Buddhism, healing is often seen as a return to wholeness, not by becoming someone new, but by embracing all the parts of you that were once left out. And when you do that, when you sit with your own sorrow instead of rushing past it, you change the story for everyone who comes after you. You become the ancestor who broke the chain. So if you're feeling old wounds rise in this season of life, don't fight them. They're not here to haunt you. They're here to be held, to be heard, to be healed. Drop a heart in the comments if you felt this silent inheritance and are learning to soften it. You're doing sacred work, even when it feels invisible. Legacy. It's a word that often brings to mind wealth, buildings, or big public achievements. But in truth, legacy is something far more intimate, and it's already being written through the way you live your life right now. You might wonder if you've done enough, if your work, your relationships, your contributions will leave a lasting mark. But here's the deeper truth. Your legacy isn't just in what you've done. It's in how you've been. It's in the children you raised, the friends you comforted, the stranger you smiled at on a hard day. It's in the values you passed on, even when you didn't know you were teaching. It's in the quiet strength you showed during times that would have broken others. Every moment of patience, every word of kindness, every instance where you chose integrity over convenience. That is legacy. And just because the world may not applaud it doesn't make it any less profound. In Buddhist teachings, the ripple of our actions continues long after we're gone. You may never see the full impact of your presence, but that doesn't mean it's not felt. In fact, the most meaningful legacies often go unspoken. They live on in energy, in memory, in love. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are exactly where your soul is meant to be, doing work that is quiet but eternal. And the best part? It's never too late to deepen your legacy. Whether that means reaching out to someone you've lost touch with, creating something that reflects your truth, or simply living the rest of your days with more honesty and presence, it all counts. It all matters. So if you've been wondering what your purpose is in this chapter of life, maybe it's simpler than you thought. To be real, to be kind, to be fully here. If you felt your understanding of legacy shift through this video, leave a comment. Someone else may be waiting for that same realization. Now that we've explored the deeper emotional and spiritual terrain of your generation, let's turn to what you can do with all this awareness. These aren't rigid self-help hacks. They're gentle practices rooted in wisdom, simplicity, and compassion to help you reconnect with your truth and feel more grounded in this stage of life. Here are 5 soulful tools you can begin using today. The daily slow start ritual begin. Your day without rushing. Even just 10 minutes of quiet, no phone, no agenda can transform your mindset. Sip your tea slowly. Listen to the sounds around you. Breathe deeply. This isn't indulgence, it's nervous system medicine. Mini insight. The pace you begin. Your day often becomes the tone you carry all day. Reclaim one joy. Practice. Think back to one thing you used to love doing before life got busy. Maybe painting, dancing, reading novels, or simply walking alone in nature. Choose one and reintroduce it into your life weekly, not as a task, but as a soul appointment. Mini insight. Joy isn't a luxury in midlife. It's a language your spirit speaks fluently. Create a legacy. Write a letter, how not to be sent, but to clarify your truth. Address it to your children, a future grandchild, or even your younger self. What have you learned? What would you want them to know about life, love, mistakes, and resilience? Mini insight. Your wisdom multiplies when it's shared, even if only on paper. The Truth Minute Meditation. Set a timer for 1 minute. Close your eyes. Ask yourself gently, what emotion is living in me right now? Let whatever arises be welcome. No fixing, no analyzing, just awareness. Do this once a day. Mini insight. Emotions become less overwhelming the moment they are witnessed without judgment. Create a sacred yes and no list on a blank page. Write 2 columns, yes to and no to. In the yes column, write down what truly nourishes you. In the no column, write what you're releasing. Revisit this list monthly. Update it as your truth evolves. Mini insight. Clarity is kindness to yourself and others. Each of these tools is a doorway. You don't need to do them all. Begin with the one that calls to you most. Treat it not as a task, but as a homecoming. And remember, the goal isn't to change who you are. It's to remember who you've always been beneath the noise. If you've made it to this point in the video, then something in your spirit already knows. You are not too old, too late, or too far behind. You are right on time, and your life, every twist, every ache, every quiet joy, has been preparing you for this very moment. You were born between 1955 and 1980 for a reason, not just to witness the changing world, but to anchor it, to be a living bridge between old wisdom and new possibility, to remind others and yourself that depth is not outdated, that presence is power, that aging is not erasing you. It's revealing you. You've survived things that once felt impossible. You've loved people you never thought you could lose. You've carried roles with quiet grace, often without recognition. But now, it's your turn to be soft without apology, to speak your truth without shrinking, to create, explore, and rest, not because you've earned it, but because you exist. And perhaps most importantly, your turn to become the elder you once needed, not perfect, not all-knowing, but rooted, present, alive. The younger generations don't need you to be like them. They need you to be you, clear, kind, and grounded in the wisdom that only time can give. So here's the final question, one I hope you'll carry with you long after this video ends. What if the most meaningful chapter of your life is just beginning, right now? If that question resonates with you, let it guide your next step, whether that's reflection, conversation, or simply watching the world with new eyes. Like this video if it stirred something in you. Subscribe for more soul-centered reflections like this. And if you're ready to go deeper, watch our next video on the 3 spiritual shifts that happen after 50 and why they matter more than ever. It's a powerful continuation of this journey. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are exactly what this moment in history has been waiting for.